Hey everybody, ABC 10 meteorologist Brendan Mitchell here with another drought update. We're going to actually take a look at a yet again improved drought monitor, and we'll also talk about 100-degree heat and warmer fall days. Yes, we're starting that transition out of summer and in towards fall. Now, that doesn't mean we're done with the heat yet, but on average, it is signaling an end. All right, here's what the drought monitor looked like as of August 17th, 2023. Here's what it looks like now, September 10th, 2023. And notice Southern California is much improved. There's hardly anything down there at all. In fact, what is down there isn't even technically drought. It would be abnormally dry conditions. The only drought that still exists on the map is all the way up here, right there on the very, very northwestern corner of the state of California. That would be 0.22% of the state. If you're curious, the rest of the color on the map is yellow. That is that abnormally dry color, either recovering from drought or entering, in our case, mostly recovering, especially down here in Southern California. So, again, only 0.22% of the state of California is officially in drought. And that is the best the map has looked since January 21st, 2020, when the drought score was 4. This week, the drought score is 7. So, there you go. Much improved scenario. And the maps actually look fairly similar with most of the abnormally dry conditions in the northern part of the state, both this week and January 21st of 2020 as well. Let's take a look at our reservoirs because we're still holding a lot of water in there. Just updated 76% Shasta is at capacity, 79% Oroville of capacity there, and Folsom 73% of capacity. So both Shasta, Oroville, and Folsom as well. All three of these reservoirs, these big reservoirs, big water players for our region and our state, are all just about at 3/4 capacity, which is great news because now, honestly, we're starting to see the end of that dry season and we will start to enter the wet season. Typically, on average, typically in October is when we can start kind of taking a peek and see if we'll get one of those first storms, some of that first rain, that measurable rain, that good soaking rain. Doesn't always happen in October, but it's typically that first month where we can kind of look ahead there. But before we look ahead, let's look back at the month of September that we've had so far, and most of it in downtown Sacramento has been at or below average. 80 degrees to start the month. Then we had a day in the middle 70s, which was great. 75 degrees on that Saturday, felt really nice. And then we've been at or below average for most of the days since then, the exception being both the 8th and the 9th when we were above average, but still only in those middle 90s. And that's over the next 10 days, about as warm as I've got for the Sacramento area. Really not expecting us to get into those triple digits or even anywhere close, really. Those middle 90s is about as warm as I've got for the foreseeable future, which is kind of what you would expect, to be honest, because September, like I mentioned a minute ago, that month of transition, right? The average high downtown Sacramento to start the month is 92 degrees. By the end of the month, that average high temperature is 85 degrees. The low doesn't move quite as much, but the average low by the end of the month does drop to 57 degrees. So we are moving quite significantly. The month of August, the average high only dropped by like a couple of degrees from the start to the finish. But certainly September, we see a big change there. And then also our average rainfall for the month of September downtown is a 1/10.5. So that is pretty significantly more, to be honest, if we're talking about it, than August, which was only 0.03 of an inch of rain. And then when we look at July, we don't even get rain in July on average. We just don't see rain. In correction, that would be 0.02 of an inch of rain for the month of August. 0.03 is what we got last month. So we did get above average rainfall for the month of August that we just had, barely. And in September, we're not there yet, but typically we do start to see a little bit more rain in September. And then in October, we see almost an inch of rain on average in Sacramento. By December, that number is about 3.5 inches. January, that number is over 3.5 inches. So like I said, we're not in the rainy season yet, but we can kind of start to see the beginning of it, especially when we get to October. We can kind of look out and see if there's any storms coming. So obviously our wettest months, December, January, February, and then March would be the fourth wettest there. So yeah, it's not that far away, all things considered. Something else that we're going to get to as well on October 1st, so just a few weeks away. October 1st is the start of the new water year for the state of California. So again, coming up on some milestones here in the water world. But let's talk 100-degree days real fast because we're not quite done with summer just yet. The year so far has seen 23 100-degree plus days in downtown Sacramento. That actually is the fewest since 2019 when we had 22 days. And on average, we see 24 days with a high temperature of at least 100 degrees. Looking back, we can go really far back on record in Sacramento. We've got good weather keeping. Goes back into the 1800s. Only 1907. That's the only year on record in Sacramento that has not had a 100-degree day. The only year in more than 100 years of record keeping, only 1907 had no 100-degree days. This year, we're right on pace to be at average, maybe even below average, because frankly, when we talk about our average last 100-degree day, that's September 15th. So we're coming up on that, and I don't have any triple-digit days in the forecast. So if the average holds and we don't see any more 100-degree days, we would actually clock in with the below average number of triple-digit days in downtown Sacramento for the year 2023. Obviously, the year still has some months left. We can get these heat spikes. We can get these very anomalously hot days, but the triple-digit days typically come to an end around September 15th. Our average last 105-degree day was August 13th. September 15th, the last triple-digit day. Last 95-degree day, September 28th, also coming up on that at the end of the month. Our last 90-degree day, October 7th, and our last 85-degree day on average is in the middle of October. So these summer temperatures are coming to an end on average. We really don't see a lot of heat after the middle of October in Sacramento. We can get some, but we typically don't. Our average first day, so first fall day is what I should say, because obviously we can get these temperatures in January, February, March, but our average first fall day with a high temperature of 75 degrees or cooler is September 27th at the end of the month. Average first day with a high temp of 70 degrees or cooler, October 12th. October 26th, that first 65-degree day. Start of November, that first 60-degree day. And around Thanksgiving is that first 55-degree day in downtown Sacramento. This is from 1990 to 2022, so roughly the last 30 years these averages are. So it gives you a better picture than taking the whole of the averages all the way back into the 1800s, which that climate is no longer representative of what we are living in today. So over the last 30 years, that's a pretty good representation of what we experience. And look at that, these fall temperatures. If you're done with the heat, if you're ready for some cooler weather, if you're ready for the 70s, I will admit I am. 75-degree day is like the most perfect day you can have, in my opinion. If you're ready for these temperatures, they are not all that far away. They are, in fact, just around the corner. But as we talk about fall, we also have to talk about how fall is changing. So over the last 50 years, that would be since 1970, this chart shows us which areas have warmed the most in the month of fall. And pretty remarkably, the entire state of Colorado, most of Wyoming, southern part of Montana, far west Texas into eastern New Mexico, and then right along the border with Mexico down in Arizona, and then also parts of Southern California as well, have seen significant fall warming, and that also includes New England up here for Maine, parts of Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island, as well as a little bit of Minnesota, there. And so as we look at the legend, this tells us 3.5 to 4 degrees warmer on average are fall days in those locations. In other parts of California, the warming is not quite as extreme. On average, that number is between about 2 and 3 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than 1970. So things are warming up. Things are changing. We'll talk specifically about Sacramento here, which is one of the regions that has not seen a lot of fall warming, but we still see some. On average, we're 1.2 degrees Fahrenheit warmer during the fall than 1970. This isn't our high temperature, it's not our low temperature, it's the average temperature. So it takes into account both. Now, we can say that certainly in the summertime, nights are warming faster than days. In the fall, it's about the same where we're seeing that warming happen. So the average temperature, which was about 63 degrees in 1970 during the fall, is now about 64 degrees as of 2022. And so that's that warming that we are seeing. We're also adding on about 8 above average days during the fall. That's about a week. So on average, we're experiencing another week of summer during those fall days, or during that fall season, right? At 8 additional days. In 1970, that number was about 40. Now we're about 50 additional warmer fall days. But it's been more pronounced in other areas like San Francisco. This is the chart for San Francisco. Look at this. On average, about another month of summer-like weather, of above average temperature during the fall, plus 26 days compared to 50 years ago. 50 years ago in San Francisco, there were about 20 above average days. Look at that steep line all the way to 2022. That number now is close to 50 days of above average fall temperatures. So we're adding on more warmth as we go into fall. And so typically you would expect this to be really the month of September, which is heating up. That transition period is longer, or it's getting pushed back entirely, as is the case in places like San Francisco. And so that's the focus of the story that we're about to hear. Is we're going to talk about fall. We're going to talk about how things are changing, how things are warming, and the impacts that has. Here's Lauren Casey with Climate Central.
Fall warming is widespread across the contiguous United States.
Lauren Casey, a meteorologist with Climate Central, says that climate change is altering our fall season.
We looked at 241 locations across the U.S., and since 1970, 232 of those locations have seen an increase on average of their fall temperature of 2.4 degrees. The greatest fall warming we observed is in the southwest region of the United States, and some of those locations had very large increases in their average fall temperatures. For example, Reno, Nevada, 7.7 degrees.
In California, much of the state is seeing warmer fall seasons by about 2 degrees, with an increasing number of above average days.
Some of their sites across California had some of the biggest increases. In Fresno, 31 more above average fall days, a month's worth.
Sacramento's warming is not as dramatic, but we are, on average, experiencing fall temperatures that are 1.2 degrees warmer than 50 years ago. We're also seeing 8 additional fall days with above average temperatures. It might not sound like much, but that still brings significant impacts.
One of those being it kind of opens that window even wider to heat-related illnesses. So we face that in the summer with the heat, but now we're heating up fall as well. Also, you talk about economically, we're increasing that cooling demand into the fall season as well. And we know that can have a big impact on your pocketbook, your energy bills increasing. Also, a longer and more intense allergy season. So you're sniffling and sneezing well into the fall. Also, you're extending the wildfire season. So there's that threat. And then on top of that, the potential for smoky skies because of the wildfires and the air quality impacts that has. So there's really cascading effects to this fall warming.